What's going on, y'all? What's going on? Just want to hop on here real quick. Appreciate y'all tapping in with me again. My name is Terrence, the therapist. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the state of California. I have been getting a lot of questions as far as the process of becoming a therapist. So, what I wanted to do for you guys today was just to give you guys a little bit more insight on like my journey as a therapist, but more specifically, my journey of going back to school. Again, if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We most definitely try to hit 1,000 subscribers in the next couple of we just try to do it as soon as possible. I didn't even get to give a time frame on that. Um, but those of you guys who have been tapping in, I appreciate you guys' support for the channel. This is like a very slow burn, but it's most definitely going to have a huge impact in the mental health space. And I feel like, there's things that are being said and the feedback I'm getting on the channel. I just appreciate you guys just tapping in and giving me some great feedback and also great topics to talk about. So just getting right into it. So my journey for grad school was it was very, very difficult. I would say just that much, just the process of where I'm at today. And if you guys haven't know, I recently just got licensed in 2022. But I've been on this journey just to figure out what I wanted to do ultimately since 2012. So we're looking at about like 10 years of trying to get to the point where I'm at. And even in those 10 years, it's still up from here. You know what I mean? It's still up from here. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for me to still grow and potentially to step into whatever God has planned for me. So I'll start just from my perspective from what was going on in 2012. Now, I went to Cal State Northridge, which is a state school in California, for those who don't know where Cal State Northridge is. So that was a school I went to for my undergrad. When I was graduated from my undergrad in 2012, I knew I wanted to go back to school, but I didn't know exactly like how that was and what that was going to be like when I went back to school. Just to keep it 100, even when I went into college, it was just like it was a whole situation. I love college. I love my college experience. Shout out to the Bros. That's my frat Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Had a great experience. Still having a great experience even after college. You know what I mean? But I would say this much: school is not my jam. School is not my jam. School is not something that I just automatically love. It's not something I automatically just do. You know what I mean? So like for me to go to school and to go to college was very, very intimidating. I remember even when I got accepted to college, um, my mom, she was just super, super, super happy. And I knew like I had to go to college. I had to go to college. Even before then, going into undergrad, it was just it was a big challenge for me because I was supposed to go in playing sports. You know what I mean? I had a really, really tragic injury, which I lost all of my scholarships. So like even the process of like, okay, I'm going to school for athletics and then I'm going to school to actually be a student, and then thinking about going back to school is just a whole different mindset for me when I'm talking about me going back to school in my own journey. Now, 2012, fast forward in 2012, um, I knew I wanted to go back to school, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I will tell you this much too. When I graduated in 2012, I had been in school since since like daycare, pre-K, kindergarten. So I went to school all the way straight through. I didn't take any breaks between high school and college. I went straight through. So when I graduated in 2012, it felt amazing. It felt super amazing just to like not go to school, not go to class, actually just like work, make some money, and go home after that. I worked a lot while I was in college as well too. So just to like work and like not have to go, to school, to study, to read and all this other stuff. That was that was it. You know what I mean? But for some reason, I knew that, having a BA for what I'm ultimately trying to do wasn't really, enough. And if I was going to go back to, if I was going to be a college graduate, I wanted to maximize my potential at what I was getting my degree in. And quite frankly, at that time, it wasn't like how it was now, where there's like this big push for people not, I shouldn't say big push, but there's a lot of advocacy for folks to go into entrepreneurship. There's a lot of advocacy for people not going to school because there's so many different options to make money now. You know what I mean? So primarily the focus to get a degree was to get a great job, and then if you wanted to get another degree, that's perfectly fine. But I knew that in that time that these a bachelor's or a BS or a 4-year college degree was looking a lot more like a high school diploma 10 to 15 years prior. You know what I mean? So like when we graduated from these programs and stuff like that with all these student loans, we wasn't getting these like these super dope jobs. A lot of the jobs, I remember my job right when I got out of college was I was making like 950 an hour, like 950 an hour right out of college. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, but at that time, McDonald's was paying like seven something, you know what I mean? So like it wasn't like I was working in fast food per se, and I wasn't like, struggling at that time. Cause again, when I say $9 an hour in 2020, like that's like, that's nothing. You know what I mean? That's like really, really nothing. It's very hard to survive just on that one income working 40 hours a week. So I knew I wanted to go back to school. I just didn't know what exactly I wanted to get into. So one of the first endeavors that I did was I looked into going to law school. I had a pretty decent GPA. I think I had like a 2 or 3.01. I remember it was just right over the 3.0. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I could go into law school. I studied for the LSAT, I think a year after I graduated. I took the LSAT actually, and I think I got about like a 150 or 155, which isn't like the best score, but it's a good enough score to get into some schools. There was a school out in, I think Whittier Law School is one of the schools I was looking into. And I think there was another school in San Diego, one of those smaller schools. Obviously, I think to get into UCLA, it was like a 160 at the time, or 165 or something like that. There was other like colleges that, again, I was just exploring my options. It was something that I was looking into. I had a family member that is they're an attorney as well too. So they helped me out throughout that process as well. So what kept me going to, and it's crazy. I'm thinking about it now. Like I had a lot of support to go to law school. Like being a black male, like you're going to law school, cool, and it sounded good. Like when you're not in school, you have this bubble. Usually when you're in school, you have this bubble that people, you kind of protected around people. Like when you're saying like, oh, I can't go out, I can't do this. You're like, oh, I'm in school. People understand. So like after school, again, I went from school from like daycare all the way up into college, and I think what I noticed was like when I said I wasn't going to school, then it seemed like I had to do something. So like telling people I was going, aspiring to go to law school, I was taking or studying to take the LSAT. It really looked good. It looked good. You know what I mean? So like it wasn't anything that was bad per se in that journey. But again, school's not my jam. School is not my jam. So I just think I just had to sit down and think about it. I was like, you know what? I really don't want to be a lawyer. They make good money. I don't like to argue like that. I don't like to, put myself in positions to like work super hard or read. I have to study all the time. And when I noticed that's what something lawyers did, after talking to a few, I just like kind of got turned off on that. But I knew I wanted to do something like, that had to do with law or advocacy or, helping people, right? I did for a brief moment look into, trying to do other things as far as law and things of that nature. Not necessarily, I shouldn't say necessarily like police work and stuff like that. That was a thought because I was a criminology major. But I think one of the gentlemen, and I'll get to the story a little bit later, when I told him like that could possibly be an option. A lot of stuff was just going on, and I didn't really, with my trauma with police, I didn't really feel like that was a good place for me. And also, in addition to that, I I just didn't really feel like it would be a good fit. You know what I mean? I did again have that thought. I was like, okay, I'm gonna maybe look into that, maybe look into the corrections. But then I started looking to the historical, things with like law enforcement and There was a lot of information coming out about like mass incarceration that I was learning about. I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to be, part of this movement per se. No shade to any law enforcement or no shade to any correction officers or anything like that. It just was not for me. It wasn't for me. Um, and another thing with that, like they get paid really well. You know what I mean? I think they was getting paid like, close to six figures. And this was like 2013, 2014. So, you make good bread, being a police officer, but again, that wasn't my position. I did speak to somebody that I was working at a boys juvenile, not a juvenile center, but like a juvenile placement, which is a place where kids go to transition from juvenile hall to going back home. So they'll come to us for like about 6 months, and we help them like find jobs. We'll help them with like things they career stuff, and just like trying to get them back acclimated. So like when they do go back home, the recidivism rate of them going back to juvenile hall was less, because a lot of times there's folks that even like adults, there's no transition. There's no transition from like being incarcerated to going back home. So like that agency I worked for, that's what we did. We helped them, and they lived with us. It wasn't a I shouldn't say like it wasn't a locked facility at all. It wasn't a locked facility at all. Like if kids wanted to leave, they can leave, right? But it was just a great opportunity for the kids to transition. We had like days where parents came in and all that good stuff. They helped with visitations, and it was a great experience for me. There was a gentleman that was working there, and I was kind of telling him, I was like, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and he pulled me aside and he was like, you know what? I think you'll be a good social worker. And my thought was, I'm not a baby snatcher. I'm not a social worker. I'm not trying to do none of that. You feel me? So he was like, he kind of laughed a little bit and he was like, nah, like social work is not baby snatching. It's not like DCFS. Social work that's not social work. And he kind of broke it down to me. And like after talking to him for like, I think I got an hour or two just that day, I was like, you know what? That may be something I might want to step into. He was so even gracious enough for allowing me to follow him at the hospital he worked at and just showed me what he did, the ins and outs of what he did. So that really put a really big, I should say, like a light on my brain just to look into like what social work is. So again, my hesitation with going back to school was always, I wasn't the best reader, I wasn't the best writer. I had even in undergrad, I had took what they call, you can't say this word anymore, but this is what it was called when I took it. It's called remedial classes. So these are classes that you took that to develop your English or whatnot. I always had like a speech impediment as well too. So like all these things that I had that later I'll talk about like all that stuff as well too, and how I overcame many of those things. A lot of those things kind of hindered me. It was always like a black cloud over me when I was talking about going back to school. Like, okay, I'm not smart enough. I can't, articulate things. I can't really speak like that. But the irony of people that can see the ability in you that you can't really see for yourself is very powerful. So luckily, and this is why I always thank God for these opportunities, even though that job wasn't like my dream job, I met a lot of great folks working at that placement that actually held me by their hand and helped me show me the ropes of like going back to school or what your options can be if you're a social worker and everything like that. So I was like, you know what? And the crazy thing, and before I even get to that, the crazy thing is, and this is where when I'm a big component of whoever you surround yourself, whichever people you surround yourself with are people that are going to influence you. At that time, I believe at the CSUN MSW program, people that are working, I believe there's three people in the program already, and I think two people that applied. And these are people that were, solid folks. So I had the opportunity just to even talk to them, one about people applying to the program, then other people also looking into like, what is, the program like, there's part-time, there's full-time. And I was always kind of concerned about how am I going to transition into working and going back to school. Because again, when I told you guys, when I was done with school and I was still working, that was it. You know what I mean? That was the thing. It was cool just to work. It was just cool just to work, have some money, and be able to do what you want to do. You don't have to worry about school, going to campus, and all other stuff. So it felt great. But again, that feeling is comfort. You know what I mean? That feeling was comfort. I knew there was going to be a point in time where I was like, I need to go back to school. So what I did was I talked to the folks that were in the program. They kind of gave me up. I talked to the gentleman that, brought me in and let me show. He allowed me to see what he did on a daily basis and how he ran the hospital and all that good stuff. So it just came down to applying. And I remember just doing my personal statement, and I was just like, damn, this personal statement is here we go again. I'm writing a personal statement. And that was just like, I was just like, man, it's crazy that I'm writing a personal statement. And that personal statement, I swear, I put everything into my personal statement. I had like 2 or 3 people edit it and look at it. And I was like, man, I'm not good at this writing thing. You feel me? But again, I had some great people around me that was able to support me. And I got into the program, right? I got into the program. I was like, damn, like that's crazy. Like I'm back in school. I'm back in school after all of, the doubts I had about myself, all the insecurities I had about myself, the me getting out the comfort zone, trying to explore things, looking into law, all those great things. And, I found out that even with the master's in social work, there's so many things you can do. And that was one thing I played me a little bit more towards the MSW side as opposed to the MFT side, because, with that the MSW program, it was a lot more relatable things as far as like social justice activism. You can get into mental health, you can get into macro social work, which means like creating the policies that run the organizations, grant writing, program development, program evaluations. There's so many different things that caught my eye into going into the MSW program. So I would say again, this part of me going back to school, it was a struggle, but it wasn't something that I regret. Like looking back at it now, again, I just got licensed in 2022, and even looking back at it now, those 10 years at 2012, when I was like, man, I don't know if I want to go back to school, right? I don't know if I want to go back to school. But one part I did miss, I did take a little break. I think that was kind of implied when I said I was figuring out what I wanted to do. I went back to school 3 years later. So 2015 is when I started my grad program, and I graduated in 2018. So that was the whole journey as far as me taking a break from school. One thing I will say, if people are considering to go back to school, is really just figure out what you really want to do. I know a lot of folks, we sometimes made the mistake of going to undergrad and not really having a full grasp of what we wanted to do, but we can try to change that around when we're trying to get these advanced degrees, like on a grad school or law school, or becoming a doctor or becoming a dentist, or whatever the advanced degree you're looking to, master's in business administration. You feel me? So there's a lot of different opportunities you may have that can help you, and focusing a little bit more on what you really wanted to do. And that was one thing I appreciate about the program was, again, with college and high school, you typically take a lot of classes that you don't need. You typically take a lot of these beginner courses, this intro to this, intro to that. But when you're in your master's program, you really are concentrated and focused on that one specific topic or that subject. You feel me? Like, so everything we did was revolved around social work. Again, social work is so broad, but it wasn't like we're taking these trigonometries or we're taking calculus or we're taking statistics. Even though math was my jam, side note, math was always my strong suit. English wasn't. So I was able to do really good in math. And even I took like advanced math in my first year of college. And in my first year of college, I was looking to be an accounting major. You feel me? So like that math was always my stuff. But then when I started working in accounting, it just wasn't working. But again, with master's program, doctorate program, you really focus on the things. You may have to take prerequisites, quote unquote, but ultimately you figure out and really focus on what you're trying to do. In my program, we had internships, so we had to apply what we learned. We had recordings we had to do. A lot of different things. It's very intense. But it really didn't feel too much of too much pressure, because the work we did is just what the work we did, we actually applied. You feel me? So it wasn't like we learned this in the classroom and we just kept it. Now we learn this in the classroom, and then we'll take these things that we're learning in the classroom and apply it to our internships or even our jobs sometime. And then, we figure out what the do's and don'ts are with that, and then go back. And it was like, like a game of ping pong. It was an even game of ping pong. It was like, okay, I'm here, we're gonna figure this out. Now I'm going back, and every time I'm going back here, we're just sharpening everything. You feel me? We're sharpening every tool that we learned. We're sharpening everything we learned from here, applying it to there. So that was a great thing about the Masters in Social Work program. And I'm happy to say, even though I had my doubts about myself, even though I had my insecurities about myself, I did graduate. I did graduate my master's program with straight A's, and I had the highest GPA at Black graduation 2018 at Cal State Northridge. And you can go back to the records and check that one. I had the highest GPA out of the whole graduating class. So that was just a testament for me, showing that, if there's something that I really want to do, even though, with grad school, you can pass, you can pass with 3.0 and all this other stuff. But I was just so determined. I was like, I love this thing. I like, actually, let me try to apply, let me try to break these barriers of like the stigma I have about like, the remedial math I had to take, or maybe my speech impediment, or all these different things I had going on in my head. But once I was able to break those things, I found out just a lot about myself. I found out that I can actually get a 4.0 in the grad program. You feel me? So that's kind of like my little spiel on going back to school. It wasn't easy, but it wasn't, it wasn't impossible. It was difficult, but it wasn't impossible, right? So even looking back at it, those 10 years, these minutes I'm giving you guys right now, and these 10 years, again, there's a lot of different things that happen in between that. But up until 2022, this has been like a journey. So anybody who's looking to go back to school, even if you're not going back for your master's, if you're going back to trying to go to college, or you're trying to go get your GED, or you're trying to finish high school, you feel me? Or even get your PhD, or whatever the degree you're trying to get, don't let that past experience dictate what you're ultimately trying to accomplish, or what you're ultimately trying to do. Because if you allow those past situations, like, oh, well, I wasn't smart, or oh, I didn't finish high school, or I didn't finish this, that, and the third, those thoughts are really going to feed into like how you're manifesting your present today. You feel me? So like, even when I crossed the stage in 2018, I'm like feeling good just even saying that, like crossing the stage in 2018. Now fast forward 4 years after that, you know what I mean? I'm glad I took those risks in 2018, because now, 7 years later, I'm bearing the fruits of what I planted to see. It was a long 10 to 7 year seed that I was planting. You feel me? But when I actually like committed to it, and actually, let it flourish, and kept feeding it, and giving it the water. You feel me? Giving it water. It came about. It came true. So I always encourage anybody who's looking to go back to school, just do it. Just do it. It's all good. Don't allow those fears to, get into your head. Don't allow those things to bother you, because you will get there just like how I got there. Again, that was just a little rant on going back to school. There was some questions that was coming up as far as like, what was your journey like and everything like that. But I just wanted to give you guys just a little bit more uncut, raw video of my experience and why I went back to school. All right. Um, so I do want to. Okay, there's a couple little questions on there, but I will say this much too. I will do like another little video on a little bit more like my why. I know this was my journey of going back to school, but my why is very, 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 very a little bit more detailed. But this is my journey going back to school and what it was like. I'll get into a little bit my why I went back to school a little bit more. But this is a little bit more of the journey of going back to school. Just thinking about it. I didn't really get into like the whys too deeply. But just check out my next couple of videos. I'm probably gonna do another live stream, just a little bit more in depth of like my why. Again, my name is Terrence the Therapist, and hope you guys enjoyed that. You guys type in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.